originally an academic. I moved from Brazil. I'm from Brazil. I moved here 20 years ago. I grew up in the capital of Brazil, where the idea of being an entrepreneur was not even, that was not on people's minds or choice set. It's like, what do you mean an entrepreneur? It didn't exist, basically. You could either go in the public sector, have a cushy job, or get out, you know. And for me, the way to get out and kind of see the world was academia. So I just sat down, worked, studied, and then ended up in the US. I moved to the US 20 years ago. I got a PhD in economics at Harvard, and then went into the academic career. My first job was actually UCLA, and eventually moved to Chicago. They have very strong focus on economics there, and it just made a lot of sense. And for the last 15 years, I've been studying a very specific area of economics, which is the economics of social interactions, right? It's interesting that economists typically think about people as these like atomistic entities making optimal decisions on their own, but humans are social animals, right? Duh, right? I mean, so I just try to incorporate those ideas into economic analysis, understanding how our decisions are shaped by our social environments. How, from early on, from like you're in high school, you know, one of the reasons you study more or less is not just because of the returns to education in the future, it's because of peer pressure. They're gonna think you're lame if you study, so you're not gonna work hard, you know, for example. So local norms, peer norms. And I started expanding these ideas to different settings, like from like investment decisions. Part of the reason why people buy some assets is it's not because they know the fundamentals, they think it's a good idea. It's because they look at their friends, they're buying the same asset. I'll just go and do the same one. I'm learning from them. Or I feel massive FOMO. Like, you know, there are a lot of assets where you kind of know it's not a great idea, but what if it's a good idea? What if they make a lot of money with some cryptocurrency, for example, and I'm the dumb one who didn't, so I'll just go invest, right? So all these kind of social dynamics are super important, right, in a variety of decisions. And one of the things I started studying, it was why people spend so much time on social media, right? And in particular, whether the social forces are important in keeping people really stuck over consuming social media or doom scrolling and so on. And what we found in this paper, like a couple years ago, I wrote this paper where we found that there's large experiments with young kids, college students, and we find that you have to pay a college student quite a bit of money to stop using TikTok or Instagram alone. But the same student is willing to pay to get rid of TikTok or Instagram. So basically said, if everyone is on TikTok and Instagram, well, I have to be on TikTok and Instagram. But boy, I wish we were all doing something else with the extra time, right? So it became clearer and clearer, and we kept doing this research that there is a trap component, there's a coordination problem. Most people would like to spend their time doing something else, but given that everyone else is on social media, it's very hard. What are you gonna do if everyone's on social media? There's nothing even to do. A friend of mine who, recent story, he's 13, he plays in a soccer team. After practice, they were hanging out at some friend's place, and everyone was on TikTok. He's not on TikTok, this kid. And then after 20 minutes, he called his dad, said, can you pick me up? There's nothing for me to do because everyone's on their phone. So even if you're the one kid who has the conscience and you want to do it, how can you do it if everyone else is stuck doing something else, right? You need a coordination tool, right? You need something together. And then, you know, we start seeing little glimpses of that when people have like pledges like wait until 8 to buy a phone. It's like parents trying to engage in collective action, right? But really what you need is collective action, right? So this paper kind of took me on a very interesting journey because I ended up advising the US government in some big litigation cases against social media and end up seeing a little bit how policymakers was thinking about these issues, right? The interesting thing about policymakers, well, of course they're worried about the future of their kids. Their kids are spending 5-6 hours per day on average scrolling. That's a lot of time, you know? The only item that takes more time is sleep. And in many cases, sleep is second to scrolling, right? So you're thinking about what's happening to the generation. And so, yes, of course, they're scrambling. They want to know what to do. And there's been a lot of push toward like phone bans, right? Let's just ban phones. Let's just throw away technology. I think phone bans can help in many contexts. But really, is the best answer to harmful tech just have no tech? Just throw away technology altogether? can't we do better than that? So that's how I started thinking, wait, I'm seeing the policymakers really pushing an agenda of like, just kind of get out, no tech. And also seeing clearly that the problem is, one of the big problems is a collective action problem. So it's like, you know what, I'm just going to build this tool. And at that point, I had a sabbatical. It was last year at the University of Chicago, and I had a book project. I had a book lined up. I was going to, and I was like, you know what, I think the way to actually have impact is to apply these ideas into a tool instead of just writing one more book that people read and say, okay, sure. So I just decided, and then I went into that journey of building what became NOMO. Totally underestimated how hard it is to be an entrepreneur. Holy shit, right? I mean, every time I go to Chicago, I look at my colleagues and said, you have no idea. This is easy. You have an easy life. But how you complain, oh, I got a paper rejected. No, shut up. That's, you get a paper rejected once every 6 months. You get rejected once every 6 minutes as an entrepreneur, right? It's hard. It's super hard. But it's also rewarding, right? Because I can see why people get addicted to it too, which is like you get these ups and downs, these wins, and you lose, and I prove people wrong. So it's quite interesting. And so and how I actually got started was I was giving some keynote here to your Chicago donors in LA, and some of the folks there were, rich donors and involved with part of the leadership of some big tech companies, and they liked my ideas, and they just decided to, hey, fund me. So I was like, okay, now I have money to get started. How do I do it? It's just like I had no idea. How do I recruit? Where do I find people? Because it's interesting too with startup early stage. Something I learned, it was actually recruiting was actually the hardest thing at first, which is in academia it's very easy to recruit. Right? You look at the person's credentials. Where did they go to school? What are their grades? And then you ask 10 people to rank 10 candidates. Everyone is going to have the same ranking. It's pretty easy. But early stage startup, the usual signals are not super informative, right? Does that person has a lot of experience working big tech? Yes. Is that a good thing? Probably not. They need to work in an early stage startup. Oh, okay, scratch that, And at the same time, if you want to play the VC game, you have to signal to VCs, and what works as a signal to VCs is not necessarily what's best in the day-to-day in a startup. You want signal to VCs, oh, we have all these people with these brands of companies, but they're not the ones that are going to be working hard when you need. We'll be grinding. So kind of figuring out how to kind of balance these different needs was actually quite hard. But, we decided to go ahead and start building. So the idea of NOMO, the first insight was collective action is needed. If you want young people especially, but generally people, to spend less time doom scrolling, you need to empower them by allowing them to do this together with their friends, right? So we decided, and we started testing this hypothesis with a trial we ran at the University of Chicago a year ago, where we invited the undergrads to spend 2 years cutting back on their social media use to less than an hour per day for 2 weeks, but together with their friends. Just a collective challenge. We got over 50% of the first year undergrads voluntarily enrolling, like just no marketing, just it's like, okay, this is great. I can spend 2 weeks without feeling FOMO. By the way, that's why I call it NOMO, right? No missing out, because if you're doing with your friends, you're not feeling FOMO. And then we did this, and then we measured the mental health improvements, and during those 2 weeks relative to a control group, we saw a drop of 47% of the incidence of depression in 2 weeks already, right? And they slept better. Their test scores went up a lot. The teachers had to curve the grades down because those classes did way better than the other classes, right? So I was like, it's fast, So it's like, okay, this validates the thesis of collective action, right? So it's like, okay, let's keep building. We still didn't have a model there, right? This is a challenge, not a business, right? So thinking more about the problem, I realized that yes, you see one side you have young kids and people in general that would love to spend more time together doing other things. So okay, that's part of the thesis. But if you zoom out, there are a lot of different entities in society that lose when doom scrolling wins, right? Schools, it's pretty clear, right? School system, they're banning phones, for God's sake, right? They don't want that. But whether you agree or disagree with phone bans, there's an issue, which is when kids get out of class, the ban doesn't work anymore. In fact, they are using the phone more when it gets banned because they want it more. I mean, if you tell a kid you can't smoke, you know what they're gonna do? Smoke, right? That's not how it works. You gotta change norms, change incentives collectively, right? So we start partnering with school systems, right? Okay. And the way it works is that school systems naturally have collective action because you have your classmates. You can generate this competition. So the way the app works, it was like we have contracts with school systems. We customize the app. We help kids. We introduce gamification and tournaments across kids in classes competing against each other, schools compete against each other, you know, and if you reduce your time on specific apps, you get points, which we call moments, right? And these moments turn into perks, right? So, and you also gain cred with your friend because you're up in the leaderboard and so on. Now, perks. We need to give the kids perks to generate incentives, right? Who gives us those perks? Well, turns out there's another set of entities that are losing when doom scrolling wins. Brands, you know? So many brands are losing the battle for people's time and attention. You know, we're in LA, right? The movie industry, guys, right? People are not going to the movies anymore. Because why? Because they're on their phones. Like I was talking to one of the heads of Universal Studios, and they said they spend north of, I think, $200 million per year on ads on social media. And kids are not going to the movies because they are on social media, right? So they're funding their own irrelevance, right? And there's no way around it, right? It's like, well, where are people? They're on social media. So to get their attention, we need to throw money at social media. But they just keep them away from us because they're taxing time, which is what I need, at a very high tax rate, 100% essentially, because 5-6 hours, there's nothing left. So I realized, wow, if I free up time, right, collectively, I can sell access to this time to other brands who don't have access to this time, and they fund the perks, right? And I monetize that, and this is what we do. So, like, we have a big contract with Duolingo, about 3 million subscriptions. So Duolingo is happy if kids are replacing an hour of TikTok for an hour of Duolingo. Everyone's happy, right? And so that's how we do it. We're talking to Universal Music to generate a lot of interesting new marketing approaches, experiences to get kids to notice their new artists. Talking to Burger King, and we have a bunch of Calm as a partner too. So we're building a roster of positive brands that provide experiences, right? And they generate the perks, and we monetize that. So we monetize the distribution through the schools. We get scale and density. We get the brands. And the third pillar is parents, right? If you're a parent of a teenager, you know it's a huge problem, and you're willing to throw money at it. So the way we do it, we have a subscription model that is interesting, which is parents pay. There's a couple of additional features, but the main thing that the subscription does is it unlocks a smart allowance. Basically, you can decide to run your allowance through NOMO. And the way it works is that if your kid scrolls less, they get paid more. If not, they don't get paid. So your problem is resolved, right? You tell your kid, hey, your allowance is conditional on your screen time, and it's all taken care of by us. So we're doing this, and so we're getting parents. And so that's kind of monetizing the distribution with the schools, monetizing the perks with the brand partners, and monetizing subscription with the parents. So that's how I realized, okay, that's an interesting model, aligning the incentives of the different stakeholders that lose when doom scrolling wins. And that's how we got started. We have some big contracts in different countries now. We're scaling up in a couple of them. And so yeah, that's been kind of the idea of what we're building. Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds very meaningfully distinct from app limiters like OneSec and others that are really looking at that behavioral change through restriction. I'm curious if you're seeing a lot of generational differences or even gender differences in the behavioral economics.
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think when we looked at the results from the trial at University of Chicago, the largest effects were actually among female students, especially on mental health. And it's especially associated with the use of Instagram, because we see that there's like Instagram really has a negative effect on young girls in terms of their body image, perceptions. And we saw that very quickly. And they were very interested in using our apps. For boys, the effect was really strong for TikTok. I think it's quite addictive, especially for boys. So we saw this a little bit, this different gender difference. Across age is interesting because we started, also because the research was around college students. We started with college campuses, and then the big thing screaming in our face is like, hey, teenagers are a huge problem. And you got to start working it before it's too late. So we started moving younger and younger. It's funny, I wanted to do 16-year-olds. And then the government, the school system is like, please, can we do 14? Can we do 13? Because before it's too late. So now we're starting at 13. A couple governments want to start at 12. I think it's a little young because probably you shouldn't have a phone at that age. So 13 and up. But the interesting thing is that the parents end up using NOMO a lot, and they write to us because part of the problem is that if you're a kid and you're at dinner at home and you look at your parents, what are the parents doing? They're on their phone, right? So how can you not be doing it, right? You need kind of to lead by example as a parent. So we're seeing a lot of use by our parents, and one of the features that is really helping achieve that is that we have this feature where you just bump your phone with someone else and it locks social media while you're together, right? So we see families like doing this, and then it's like, okay, during dinner, this is a sacred moment. We're present. We have intention, right? And it's nice because it creates the joint commitment, right? Because all it takes is one person to get distracted, pull their phone out, and that's it. The whole dinner is ruined. So we're seeing a lot of parents and write to us like, oh, I saw couples. The one person wrote to me and said, I haven't looked into my partner's eyes in 2 years. And you gave that back to us. I thought it was kind of nice, because they're looking at their phone, right? They're not looking.
Valentine's Day.
Yes. So it's interesting. I mean, at some point we had to take a stand on the first target, and because of the way the school systems demand a solution like ours, and the value of teenagers to brands as well, as this is a critical demographic group. We're focusing on them, but the problem doesn't disappear. It is an attention problem that we're dealing with across all ages. This is a big problem. Also, I came to learn more about it recently among actually old age. It's actually one of the ages that are most affected because, and frankly, it's like a lot of the younger relatives just figure out, okay, away, so grandpa is not on my case, just put them on Facebook, right? And that's it. It's like, so it's the same thing that parents were doing to their kids, like, oh, give them the iPad, give them their phone, and they're doing to their parents. So it's a problem that cuts across all ages. So yes, I think there's definitely more to be done. But I think at a broad level, and as I started getting deeper and deeper into that and doing more research around it, it's just like, I think there's an opportunity now to think about technological tools to help achieve a more balanced and healthier relationship with technology itself, right? And I think that's part of the nuance that is lacking in the whole debate, that is pitting on one side the super techno optimists, right? Oh yeah, AI is like gonna solve all problems. Hey, everyone, we don't need friends anymore. We're just gonna be friends with the chatbots. Great, blah 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 blah. And the Luddites on the other side, Jonathan Haidt, who's a friend. I mean, I'm good friends with John Haidt, who wrote The Anxious Generation. And it's like, okay, just ban phones, let's throw it away. And I think that's kind of a waste too, and also not effective, because if you ban phones, at some point, people will need their phones, and they never learned how to use it, right? So you need to build healthy habits, right? And that involves collective action, proper incentives, information. And I think it's just a great moment to think about tools that do that, right? I think we can discuss, there's a lot of potential ideas out there on how to achieve that,
Yeah, cross-generationally, I'm curious what you think the role of media literacy is in engaging with social media, and maybe if we're failing in some other aspects of our educational system.
I think that's a great question. I think if you look back 20 years, a big difference in terms of higher SES families and lower SES family, it was the quality of their diet, their food, right? Mm-hmm. People are eating, that like not eating has no longer been a problem for economic development. It was
haunting.
Yes, it was the quality of the food, right? That distinguished like higher income families and lower income families. Right now is the quality of your media diet, your screen time, and we see that higher income parents are much more aware, and partly because they have more money to deal with the problem, they have help and so on. If you're, say, a low income single mom, I mean, you're just juggling so many things, right? And then you say, there's a screen. You throw the screen at the kid, right? Because now you have other things to do. So it is, you see definitely an income divide here in terms of like how richer families have been, and they're more aware of the problem, right? So it's been a big shift in how people think about this issue for the younger generations, and it's getting to richer, like higher income families earlier, right? Another interesting aspect in terms of income inequality is like, I'm noticing that even policies like phone bans really have these unequal outcomes by income strata. Like I talked to a lot of schools, and in schools where everything works, the phone ban works. It's very easy. You have 10 people to confiscate the phone. You have the under pouches. Everything works. I was talking to a math teacher in Baltimore City schools. Phones have been banned. He said 80% of the kids in my class are on their phones. They're banned. Good luck trying to get the phones out of those kids. They're actually on their headphones during my class. If I try to take it out, they're going to beat me up. I'm not going to try, you know? So it's interesting because just telling no is not going to be enough. You need to generate incentives. You need to feel like they're losing by not doing it, right? Like kids stopped smoking cigarettes. Not when it was illegal. It's been illegal for a long time. When it became lame, it's like, why are you smoking? That's not cool. That's unhealthy. And then they stopped, right? So we need a shift around norms and the narrative. So I think it's part of the solution.
Yeah. To your earlier point, how's AI as an accelerant in that space?
I think AI opens up so many opportunities. It makes the problem trickier, but also it's part of the solution, I think. Because a lot of we're starting to see young people allocate more and more of their time to conversation with the chatbots, right? So that, in addition to doom scrolling, this is becoming a time sucker. And there's positive conversations, but there's a lot of like, by doing that, you're not interacting with real people anymore, right? You don't need, right? It's like, I have a friend who agrees with me all the time. Why would I bother, right? And that just creates more isolation, right? And just makes the problem worse in the long term. I think, so that's part of the problem in a way. So like, that's just like, now we start looking at that too. But AI is such a flexible tool that it can be part of the solution too. It's like, I think we should be thinking about AI not as a replacement of human interaction, but like a gel that helps human interactions, right? Imagine instead of having an agent that becomes your best friend, an agent whose goal is to make sure your relationship with your best friend is as good as possible. It's responsible for keeping you guys in touch, coordinating, knowing. It's a very simple thing, right? AI can do that, right? It's just like shifting kind of the goal toward helping people connect more, right? So I think AI can really be part of the solution, you know? And it also allows for apps like ours to just become much more customized and kind of also more proactive, understanding when the problem is about to happen before it happens. And then, so we choose to be more proactive. So I think it definitely could be part of the solution. I think we're in such an interesting moment with the amount of things we could be doing with AI now and how things are changing. I had a couple conversations here about the idea of friction, like just, I think there's going to be a big demand for friction back in life because everything is just so smooth, so perfect, customized, and so I think bringing some of these elements, I think it's going to, and AI can provide that too. You know, you can generate AI that has just a little bit of friction in your decisions. It can help you. I have a friend, one of my co-authors in Chicago is building this, like, we're doing a lot of research around this guardian agents. That's the name they're using, which is like, kind of understands your behavioral biases and helps you make decisions that are consistent with your best version, right? So there's just so much. There's a lot of examples. So I think it's a super exciting time. So I think, again, the idea of using technology to help people have a better relationship with each other and with technology, AI is a prime tool for that. Yeah.
Yeah. To speak to the elephant in the room, we're 6 months past the COVID shutdowns. 6 years past the COVID shutdowns. Certainly not past the pandemic. Yeah. Feels like it sometimes. But what has the impact of the loneliness epidemic been on your work and on NOMO?
Yeah, I think we got hit with, there was already a tendency toward isolation, and COVID just kind of push that, right? And it's interesting. I was doing some reading some data on the extent to which people go out, drink, party. I mean, it's just crashed, right? And I think what happened is that it accelerated those who were about reaching the age when they're like, I'm too old to go out. Okay, COVID kind of just sped that up. And then there was a other generation that when they were entering the age of doing these interactions, COVID hit, so they never got to start. And then for the younger generation, there's a problem. The places are closing, right? There's just fewer bars, fewer clubs, and so on. So that is something that COVID definitely accelerated the whole process. And and I think there's a super interesting theme here. I'm actually writing a book about this. We're starting about there's so much convenience in the world now, right? And convenience is great, but it comes at a cost too, right? Like, and COVID was convenience on steroids because we had no choice. It's like, I can't go to a restaurant. Let me just order on DoorDash. I can't go to movie theaters. I'm just gonna stream, right? And you start doing this. I cannot go to the office, like work from home, right? Super convenient every day when you wake up and you have two choices. Should I get dressed, go to work, deal with my colleagues, or just wear my Birkenstocks and just sweatpants and work from home? I work from home. So it makes sense every day, but over time, what happens? You're home, you're isolated, you're not interacting. What makes us happy is human connection. So we started like, people are not internalizing the long run cost of these everyday decisions going for convenience, right? Similarly, am I going to the movie theater or just streaming? Let's just stream. And then you don't go out, you don't see other people, you don't experience the collective wonder seeing like on the big screen something nice, or a restaurant. DoorDash is much easier, yes, we know, but at some point you're just not going out, and at some point restaurants are closing. There's not even retail anymore. Even if one day you decide to go out to shop, because I kind of want to see people, stores are closing. So we saw what happened at 3rd Street Promenade, right? And COVID accelerated this. Those things come together. It was an accelerator of this whole process of like extreme convenience. So I think there's gonna be a lot of interesting research, but also ideas to be generated around like human need for a little friction, a little kind of removing some of the convenience, kind of figuring out ways, because we need that. We need imperfection. We need human connection. Otherwise, we're just going to be stuck at home, right? So I think it's a broader discussion that we should have. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we do things like this here at the KINN, right?
Exactly.
This is a lovely way to start our morning in community with you lovely folks, with excellent experts like Leo.
Thank you.
So speaking to that point of community, we have a very strong perspective here at the KINN that's what you need. It's the most essential cornerstone. It's the most human, fundamental piece of motivation. So what do you think is very unique about this community and this ecosystem, not just the KINN, but Venice and LA more broadly? You've spent a lot of time in Chicago, it sounds like. We're obviously not the Bay. What do you think is really distinct about it?
That's a great question. Oliver and I had a good chat about this yesterday, and we started thinking about what makes KINN special, but even more broadly, what makes Venice special, right? This whole community. I think there's been definitely a growth in kind of the presence of tech here in Silicon Beach. Anyway, if we try to be like the Bay Area, we're never going to be like the Bay Area. And I don't think we should try to be like the Bay Area. We're always going to be inferior. It's, but what we have that is special here is a diversity of backgrounds, thoughts, and also just kind of activities, right? I mean, it's not sunny today, but typically it is sunny, unless there's a marine layer. But there's the sun, there's the beach, there's a whole community of wellness, health. There's the entertainment industry, which is about, tradition about being out, connecting, watching movies, experiencing this together. So I think we should lean on that, right? And say, hey, our brand should be human-centered, something around human-centered tech that helps connect people, right? Yes, tech is part of the solution, but we should have always a focus on community, on people, and position ourselves this way. And I see KINN as being kind of at the center of that, because naturally that's how you structure. That's the curating you've done in terms of the members, the events. So I think that's quite exciting, and I think we should be trying to build that. And I think that would make everyone rise, because it's just like it's a position, it's taking a stand. I was in last couple times I was in the Bay Area. I was like, my reaction was like, I'm so glad I'm not here. First, I'll be feeling crazy FOMO, because man, this guy just, a friend of mine is like, my buddy just shop around with a piece of paper and got a 500 million valuation. I was like, what? Yeah, I have this idea of like a new OS for AI apps, and it's like it's $500 million. And I was like, no, it's not. What are we talking? I would feel like I'm losing every day, right? Because their valuations, and if you kind of go a little against that flow of like, you should just be doing AI wrappers, and I felt really grateful to be in LA, because it grounds you. Because I think there's something there. It's amazing what's happening with AI. I think it's revolutionary, but you should not lose touch of people. Listen to people, talk to people, to parents or brands, the way we're doing with communities, and see what are the problems people are facing, and kind of remember that. And I feel like it's going so fast, and there's all drank the Kool-Aid that they're just not connecting with the real world, and trying to, and overlooking that the thing they're building can actually help in the real world. And that's not how they're thinking about it to a large extent. So I think that's what we should be doing. So I'm very happy that we're here. And I think this is a great moment for Venice, for us, for KINN.
We're very grateful to be in Venice and at the KINN. This is such a special community and so unique. But the peak of it for me is really seeing how many purpose-driven founders we have. And I have a couple of people from Founder Sprint Studio, new admission, and alumni who have worked on these very deeply purpose-centered businesses that really have humans at the core. They may leverage AI, they leverage these technologies, but they're very thoughtful about what that impact on the community is going to be. You can actually see some of them at Pitch Purpose tonight from 6 to 9 if you want to hang around. Tell me a little bit more about how adding levers in that play on status and play on engagement are really the differentiator for NOMO in particular.
Great. Yeah. I think part of our kind of balanced approach is to understand what works, right? To get people excited, engaged. There's a reason why platforms, games, use gamification, leaderboards, ranking. It works. It motivates people. Like Duolingo is a great example. It's a really good app, and people come back because they want to keep their streaks. They just master that. So we really decided, like, okay, we want to use this to the extent that it helps people achieve their goals. But of course, we don't want to turn this into a trap, right? Because next thing you know, okay, well, if they're in the app, let's put some content, let's engage them, let's keep them. So it's about using it in a way that helps achieve our mission without turning into the problem again. So it's interesting because we have streaks, which every consecutive days that you spend under 3 hours of scrolling. We have challenges, which is weekly long challenges, less than 1 hour per day. We have these bumps. We have a couple of things. We have the rankings, the leaderboards. But other than that, we don't want kids to spend time on our app. So the average session is 22 seconds in the app. And I see that as a victory, right? It's like every app is trying to maximize that number. We're trying to minimize that number, right? We want to monetize disengagement, right? And because disengagement with us means engagement with something better than scrolling, right? And we're monetizing that, right? It's like we're planning to introduce a direct kind of screen time replacement of TikTok with Duolingo, because hey, we're a screen time app. We know if you're spending time on Duolingo, so we can literally create a challenge that is like every day that you replace an hour TikTok for an hour on Duolingo, you get a reward, and we can do that, right? A lot of even retails like Burger King has an app, right? So you can verify that the person went to Burger King and used the voucher for the burger, right? So everything's kind of so we monetize disengaging with our platform, because that means disengaging with the harmful doom scrolling, right? So So that's kind of how we're approaching using the things that work, like gamification, incentives, uh, but without turning it into the new problem.
Yeah. So coming myself from a design background where engagement is kind of that holy metric of how glued can I have someone be to my app, even if it's a healthcare app, how often can I have them come back? Are they a captive of mine? I'm curious, you spoke a little bit on a podcast about green bubble design.
Yes.
Can you work through that for us?
Yeah, I think there's one of the main drivers of human behavior is the quest for status, right? That we're human, we're social animals. We like to compare ourselves against each other, and we're gonna have status races no matter what, right? We do a little bit of that on NOMO, like with the leaderboards, trying to kind of create a sense of you being cooler if you achieve something that others didn't, because that's how people are wired. And some of the perks we're gonna do with the music industry, we're involved like pretty epic things like meet and greet with an artist. We're talking to a big soccer team in Europe to send like a signed jersey by all the players for the things are pretty epic like this to give status. That's what works for kids. But generally people are wired to compete for status. And for example, we put out a paper this week on German World War II fighter pilots. You know what got them to go to actually take risks and die for their cause? It's not money. It's like a medal. If you kill enough enemies, you get a medal. People will kill people for that. They would die for that. That's what matters. People go do a lot of things for awards, as we're seeing this week in the world, right? Anyway, so it's what drives people. So yes, we're doing this. We're trying to create a sense. But I think so. The example of the green bubbles and Apple, we have a paper that shows that one of the main drivers of market power for the iPhone is simply the color differentiation of the text message. If you text with an iPhone, your bubbles are blue. Text with an Android, they're green. Android users on average are poorer than iPhone users. So kids don't want to be seen as a poor Android user. So they force their parents to buy iPhones. And that creates tremendous market power. We quantify this. So it's being used in the DOJ case now. We're helping them. And it's an example of design centered around status. And if you think about humans and their need for status, perhaps the most effective status race ever devised has been social media, right? Because status competition used to be about money, right? You have a bigger car than mine. You're richer. I want to signal conspicuous consumption. Why? Because money is visible. What you can buy with money is understood, right? So everyone agrees, right? But there are other things that are quantifiable. And for example, social media likes, how many followers you have. That just became the whole game, right? And that just creates a lot of anxiety. People start like competing for likes. They want to be popular. They want to, and that changes the way they look. I mean, we're finishing some paper now showing that using basically using AI machine learning to look at yearbooks of schools in the US. And we see that young girls are looking like older girls faster and faster. And that coincides with the introduction of Instagram, right? You start 12-year-olds looking like 17-year-olds, 13-year-olds looking like 17-year-olds. I mean, it's stark, and you see some plastic surgery, you see lipsticks, jewelry. You start seeing young girls becoming adults faster because of the pressure to look in a certain way on social media, right? So that is kind of the status race. Now, again, but this is also an amazing opportunity. Never there has been so much data being collected. And people, if designed well, people can compete for anything. I'll give you an example. Strava. You're going public, right? Strava is a great example. They created an app that gets people to compete for running. That's awesome. That's great, right? And it can be good business. So the point is about conscious business. Like you can actually, there's enough ideas that are good and also great businesses. And Strava is one of them. One of their founders is a good friend. And they always we're very intentional about what type of engagement they care about. And it's not engagement with the app because that's not what it is about, right? It's about getting you to run and so on. So and they were able to engineer within a community a different status race, right? Which is about running, right? It's interesting. There was a New York Times article a few weeks ago, where about the Strava mules. People are rich people hiring people to run with their phones to go up the ranking. But that means that you're a successful business when this, and you unlock the status race where you're literally hiring people. The same thing where people like don't want to miss their snap streak. They give their phone when they're traveling, they're with a friend, and so it's happening. So I think you could engineer a status race for sleep now. There's enough data collected about sleep, about heart rate. I mean, anything. It's just like, so that's when it's like, I think that's the opportunity now. And guess what? The status races of Instagram are doomed. Why? Because of AI. Like flexing, being on the beach in Ibiza, it takes 2 seconds on a banana and you're there. That's not gonna be the flex, right? So we need new things. And that's the opportunity again, right? Let's think about new status races, tap into the human need. Strava did one, you can do another one, right? And I think a lot of it are gonna be things that cannot be replaced by AI. This human connection. Like this is worth a lot. And if we should design a status race around the fact, if we're here, we should be gaining points in that status race because we're connecting the real world, right? So I think that's, again, it's pretty broad, but I think this is such an interesting moment to think about redesigning these things. So yeah.
Yeah. I would love to open us up for some Q&A. I'm sure we have some good questions. Do we have a mic runner? All right, you'll have about 10 seconds for your question, and they'll hang on to the mic for you.
Yeah, first of all, kudos to Leo for coming up with a great solution for a really important problem. You mentioned 3 pillars: schools, parents, and brands. Curious if any of those have been particularly challenging and if you've had to tailor your pitch to any of those pillars.
Yeah. Great question. I think understanding at the conceptual level what we're doing and being excited about it has not been hard with any of those. The third one to unlock really is brands. And the reason is they need scale for it to make sense, right? And part of the reason you could think about a chicken and egg problem earlier on, which is, you need perks for kids to use the app, but you need kids to be there to unlock the perks, right? And how do we break this problem? That's why we thought about schools, because schools give you immediate scale and local density, right? So there's a state in Brazil, São Paulo, they have 5,000 schools, and it's one contract, and that's 3 million kids, and then we tell them, hey, let's sign, and we'll bring the perks. Then with that, you go to the brand and said, hey, we got 3 million kids now. And then you get the brands, right? So that was kind of a way to break from this issue of like, we need, and I understand, like if we have a lower number of users and you would talk to Duolingo, they give you not a great perk, whatever, generic. But if you email them and said, hey, we have 3 million kids who need something to do with their time, I hope it's Duolingo. Then it's different, the conversation. It's like, oh, okay, shit, that's serious. So I think for us, it's the brands are kind of getting them, and it's also getting them to go against. I think the challenge is gonna be, okay, that's cool. I'll use my experimental marketing budget for that, right? To realizing, oh, this is actually a viable alternative to how I'm spending my big ad dollars, right? Because they're so tied to the usual model of like social media ads. So I think it's going to be part of our discussion. It's like, oh, let's try this. And then we're going to have to generate a lot of data to show the ROI on this type of investments to them. So I think that's going to be the challenge. But I also think that's going to be the big unlock in terms of revenues. The parental subscriptions, yes, it's good. School partnerships can get big contracts. But if you get brands to understand that there are different ways to do marketing, that's bigger. Yeah, so that's where we're going to be spending a lot of our efforts. Yeah. By the way,
action's a movement.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's collective action on their side too. Like we're putting some paper out on attention to ads on social media. If you do TikTok for 10 minutes and you ask people, what's the last ad you just saw? The last one. What percentage of them remember the brand of the last ad?
15.
2%. So 2%. So that's where they're spending their money. They're basically throwing their money away, right? And so that's kind of, and they know that. They just kind of stuck. So it's about kind of getting brands to see, and it's gonna be, as everything, it's about you get a few first big ones, and it becomes easier to get the other ones, because then you're gonna get FOMO, right? Oh, I should be doing that too. So it's yeah, that's how the world works. Yeah.
All right, next question.
Oh, sorry. God, I can ask you 16 questions. But I want to actually talk about ultimately later about an app that I'm doing. But I'm really curious when you talk about Venice, because I'm very involved in Venice. And there's a cross section of people that anywhere from older, we fought for anywhere from bras to Vietnam, to we are now in a place of tech, and it's ruining Venice. It's helping Venice. We need to keep. How do you see where we are now, in the film industry? How do you see what we're doing in Venice so differently than Chicago, the Bay Area, and what should the identity be going forward for here? We have the Olympics, we have World Cup, we have just so many things coming here, and we're the #1 tourist destination in the city of LA.
It's a great question. There's 16 questions in one there, but okay. So it's 16 times 16. Okay. I think so. It's a city that has been changing a lot, as you said, right? While keeping a core identity, right? And I think on the tech space, I think we should lean on that. And I think there's the aspect of wellness, being outside, enjoying the sun. There's the aspect of creativity, artistry, and I think many of them are about human expression and human interactions, right? And so I think we should be building a tech brand around this, right? And I don't have a name, but I think we should be thinking about that. About, I don't know if it's human-centered tech or tech that is good for people, tech that connects people, and yes. I think it's their compared.
Rooted tech, if you're familiar with that.
Yes. So I think, that's our advantage. That's why we have this special, So I think we should be focusing on that. Actually, sounds great, but like having a brand, like really like positioning as such. Silicon Beach, it's a nice brand, but I don't know, it doesn't. It's wild. Yeah.
Look, so I'm going to give you the brand. Our Venice as the brand. I tried Venice Future, and everyone said it was a real estate grab. So it's our Venice. How do you engage people, gamify it? How do you gamify it?
Our is amazing because it's about community, right? It's not my Venice, right? It's our Venice. So I think it starts tapping into this idea of something social, something that is communal, and I think I think it's a great, yeah. A lot of things come to mind. I think it's a very good. Our is very good, actually. I think, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Gary. All right, who else do we have questions from? A couple more up here.
Hi, my name's Michael. Great talk today. You talked a lot about friction. I was curious about your experience of friction being an entrepreneur. What have been the biggest surprises, and how did you overcome them in the journey so far?
A lot of frictions, yes. I think it's about one of the things that has been really hard is make decisions with very little data, right? I think as an academic, especially, you're used to making very precise decisions based on experiments, running data, evaluating, and so on. And so navigating uncertainty and ambiguity, it is something that is very difficult, especially earlier on, right? And motivating people also without having the data to back what you're saying, right? And so for me, was going against a lot of my instincts. And when I start talking to VCs, for example, that was also something I had to adapt, right? Because the rules of how you describe things in academia are very different. You gotta pre-specify the experiment you run. You cannot do p-hacking. I mean, it's just like the data are the data. You have to be very, and storytelling is not supposed to be part of it, right? So I have to adjust, so So that was something. I think it's difficult how to navigate the ambiguity and just lack of data, but also, I mean, I think kind of for me the hardest part in the first year was recruiting. I think it's very difficult to recruit, right? Find the right people. I think eventually we start learning more, kind of how to interpret the signs, and joke I tell is like everyone I interviewed, first I loved them. I was like, man, they're amazing, and the next day I hate them. I was like, wait, it has to be something in between, right? So recruiting is very hard, especially early stage, right? And because again, it's like you have to infer whether they will have stomach to do things. They're going to be hands-on. They're going to be willing to get their hands dirty, right? There are a couple cases where we interview people and they look amazing, great experience, and then when it's time to agree on what they said, oh yeah, when you hire me, I'll need 2 senior product managers. I'll need 2 engineers, a designer. I was like, wait, we're hiring a team, right? That's not what we need, right? We need you to do the work. So I think recruiting and it is quite challenging, and I think this idea of the good thing about being an ecosystem like Venice is that you can find local people, and it's something that we've been trying. Alexia here is our new chief of staff. She's hi Alexia. She's local. We hired our COO Eric, who is a co-founder of Chow now, and he was their CEO for 14 years, and he's local. So now I'm decided that I think to be consistent with our mission of being connected, we want to work in the office, right? So we're trying to hire locally and so on, because I think there's nothing replaces like being in the same place, like a whiteboard. Come on, it's like it's just great, or going for lunch, discussing ideas, and kind of getting pulse, especially when you don't have data. A lot of it is about kind of communication and getting the cues, right? So I think, yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but it's been really hard. Yes, it's but I feel like in academia, like I don't know, it's like the wins happen, but they're so slow, and the losses, everything like this, and then in startup plans, like the same day you change how you feel like 8 times, right? That's crazy, right? It's like, oh yeah, God, it's like shit, I suck. Oh my God, it's yes, and it's I think that's why people get addicted to this thing, right?
Yeah, it's also why they burn out. I'm curious, just to pop another question in for you. What do you think of conscious entrepreneurship, and how do you approach that in your own founder journey?
In the sense, just so I understand, in terms of the purpose of the business, of how you approach your
you're
balance.
approaching it as a founder, what kind of balance you're able to attain so that you're
Yes.
not burning out, or we're really not in love with grind culture here.
I
You have to
know.
grind sometimes, but we think it's really important to balance.
Yeah, I think I have to curb down my tendencies, because I tend to be more on the obsessive side, to just like get and understand that, and I think it's important. Balance is it's a crucial thing, and that's part of what we get here too, right, in the community, right? So introducing, starting to get a quorum of surfers at NOMO. So I think I think it's gonna be part of it, right? We're gonna have the boards. We can take a moment and re-energize, reconnect, and it helps in so many ways, right? So I think we're definitely we're starting to tap into that, and it's part of the advantage of being in the office, being together, is to have that that moment, right? So I think it's super important, because I think yes, you grind, right? I mean, I see those posts on LinkedIn, these AI kids now, right? Oh, we're camping the office, and putting tents inside the office. We don't sleep. That's the Bay Area now, right? And I don't know. I don't think that's sustainable, right?
Yeah.
And I think also part of the whole discussion with AI is like, the thing is, if you're building a business and your only moat is your speed, maybe that's good, but maybe that's not good, right? Because I mean, kind of, it's just about who runs faster, right? I mean, there was someone some big investor said, momentum is the moat, or it's a nice alliteration. But the thing is, I don't know if that's kind of the way to think about it, right? To build a sustainable business, and I understand, because there's a lot of low-hanging fruits now with AI, right? Of like, oh, no one has done this yet. It's a simple, I can vibe code this, just do a wrapper here and be the first one. And sure, yes, and maybe 10 other people will do. Maybe OpenAI just press a button and does it, right? Or maybe OpenAI will acquire you because they feel like, oh, I'm not even going to bother. So maybe that's the play, to be acquired. But I don't know. So there's a very strong grind culture happening in the Bay Area now, right? Yeah. And I think that's part of our positioning, right? Which is getting balanced to how we approach the craft.
When you go fast, you might miss things.
Yeah.
Another question. Another question here, and we'll get to you.
Yeah, I had a really quick question around, I saw this behavior a lot over the holidays where I would walk into a room, and probably the time in life where I am at, but you'd be walking into a room and all the kids would be on their phones, and then all the parents would be, like the older generation, 70s plus, 65 plus, would be on the phones. And they're doing the exact same thing, which is like doom scrolling, either on WhatsApp or whatever social media. And, I see a lot of the focus being on kids, but what about the older generation?
Yeah.
That's like, could we, instead of pushing them to Duolingo, could we push them to like dementia apps, or like getting out and exercise?
Absolutely.
And like, I don't know who the stakeholder is, because schools are you have that high concentration. But I think with older generation, I'm seeing that same kind of behavior. I know that data. I was curious to get what data that
Absolutely.
support.
Yeah, I think it's a huge problem that, again, is sort of being overlooked, which is what's happening to older generations, right? And guess what? It's affecting many of them. Still vote, and they're very subject to misinformation too. They don't have the same kind of awareness of that. And now with AI deepfakes, oh man, they're just, it gets pretty dangerous on that front too. I think we had to take a first focus, and it's been in younger generations, but I think we should definitely be looking at older generations too. I don't know how it works with senior citizen living, if there's like big chains but I think there's enough cool things that could be offered to them, right? Like dementia apps, like keep their brain engaged. Guess what? Okay, doom scrolling, it's not what's gonna delay dementia. No, it's not. That's not it, right? But there are things that could do that. In walking, right? I mean, just like generate gamification for steps. There are apps that do that, right? Like sweat coins and so on. So I think there is definitely something very important there that is being overlooked for sure.
All right, we'll go to our final question. We had one more in the back. I'm so sorry, Bogdan.
Hi, I'm Janae. Thank you for your inspiring talk. I'm curious what you do for marketing. You mentioned social media ads don't have a huge return, and I've heard mixed things. So I'm curious how you market things. And you mentioned this huge $3 million contract with schools in Sao Paulo. Do you also have some contracts with schools in the U.S.? And is that your main marketing tool, or you use other things?
Great question. We are relying mostly now on the schools to do it for us. Especially when you get big partnerships at, say, the state level, the schools have their own influencers. Like today, São Paulo is recording, actually today, the content with an influencer that will do the job, So they have the ability to generate awareness about the app, right? To all the students. The challenge there is how to make it without automatically making it lame, right? That's the issue, right? If the school says you should use it. So the first thing, NOMO is not required. We tell the school, you cannot, not a requirement. Kids use it if they want, and the school says, but no. It has to be, because the moment you force it, they don't want to use it anymore, right? So it's about making them want. And how do we make them want? Well, we need to make it cool. We have the right perks. We have so a lot of the perks that we have are also pretty unique. Like, for example, we have the antisocial social club hoodie, but there's an S that spray painted anti-socials social club. It's unique. No one has that shirt. They want it. You know, stuff like that, just to make it like our branding is all like kind of punk. If you look at our app, it doesn't look like an app. It looks like, I don't know, some punk rock flyer. You know, it's just about having that and finding the fine balance of the schools telling kids, oh, there's this thing. You don't have to do it, but there's this thing. And one thing that really works, the best form of sign up is a QR code in a session like this, right? When you the teacher, before it's funny because they confiscate the phone at school. So it's before they confiscate, they sit in a class and say, hey, there's this tool. If you guys want to use it, talk about the perks. There's usually a video with some influencer, something nice. And there's a QR code. All it takes is like 2 kids to raise their hand. And then there's a third, and there's a fourth, and there's a 10. And everyone does it. I've seen it happen. It's like that Ceausescu at the end of Romania, the fall of the communist regime, right? He was giving this speech in public square, and one person started like booing. And in 5 minutes, his regime fell. The next day, he was shot. He was killed, right? Because someone booed, and then everyone started booing, right? So, I mean, it's an extreme case. Anyway, but you know, it's a part of social dynamics, right? So we like having sign-ups that are collective really works. And in schools, we get that, right? And so we haven't... Every idea we have of marketing, we basically scratch for now because... we have a partnership with a big, very popular platform to get free ads. We haven't used it because we're doing this approach for now. Yeah.
All right. Well, that wraps us up. I think we can all maybe commit to taking a walk without our phones in our pocket, maybe going to dinner with a loved one without our phones in our pocket, go see a movie, invite someone out. Any closing thoughts or things?
Thank you. No, I really appreciate the opportunity. Please, you know, if you want to talk more, connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'd love to meet you all like separately. I think it's a magical community we have here. Oliver, I'm pushing you to do like maybe we can do something around this team sometimes, you know, of tech to connect people and and I think we can build that space here. That's the place for that. So thank you
for being that member of our community too.
you.
We're so
Thanks.
happy to spotlight members like yourself.
Thank you.